If you're tired all the time and the only advice you've been given is drink more water or get more sleep, this episode will blow your mind. Colleen Kurtz joins us to unpack what your doctor isn't telling you about burnout, gut health, and the real reason your energy's gone MIA.
Hi, I'm Britt.
And I'm Amy, and welcome to the Every Season podcast.
We're here for a fun time, not a long time.
Hopefully we're here for a bit of a long time. Hey Britt,
Hey, Ames.
would you say you need some assistance when it comes to being more aware of your body?
Why, what have you got?
Well, you can download our free 7-step female body awareness kit and see if it helps.
Sweet, where?
In the show notes and on our website.
Also, in order for us to be here for a long time,
Please subscribe to our podcast.
So, Colleen, what season are you currently in at the moment?
I'm in a lot of different seasons, I feel like.
I love that.
I love this question. I feel I'm at a season of life in my energy. I'm grounded, steady some days. With my kids, I'm in like the elementary age of life. With my career, I feel like everything is just in this kind of expansion, redefining phase of getting to know myself on a deeper level in this season of life with kids that are getting older, but at the same time, how do I shift and change with that? So, but while still staying slow, intentional, grounded, steady.
How'd you do that?
Well, some days are better than others. But a lot of what I do to really hone in on what do I need is intentional conversation with myself. So I do journaling, I do breath work, I do a lot of planning. And honestly, I was someone who was incredibly resistant to planning. I was the let's just fly by the seat of your pants and see what happens and then be stressed out because things aren't going well. But I have found that when I take 10 minutes to just focus on what does my week ahead look like? What do my meals need to look like? Who's picking up kids that day? It saves me so much time and it helps me to be more intentional with my time.
I find what you do is so interesting. Like, I've been following you obviously on Instagram, and I think what you do is so relatable to so many people as well. Like, so when I've seen some of your posts, I'm like, yeah, that's me. So,
Oh, I love that.
like, what drew you into like functional nutrition and like supporting mums through burnout?
Yeah, so functional nutrition quite literally saved my life. I was dismissed for years and years, over 10 years, by conventional doctors. I was having so many symptoms that just didn't really piece together. And it was see this specialist and see this specialist and, weird things from migraines to eczema to severe hormonal dysfunction, even at a young age, to sleep issues. I mean, it was so many different things. Joint pain. They told me, I think I was maybe 18, 19, that I was going to need a knee replacement by the time I was 30. Heart palpitations, just bizarre stuff that, oh, go see this doctor. Nope, you're clear. Your labs look fine. Your MRI's fine. And it wasn't until I changed my diet and I shifted my nutrition that I got any better. I was on probably 10 to 15 different prescriptions for all different things. And I stumbled across somebody mentioned, hey, what if it's grains or gluten? And I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There is no way me eating bread is destroying my body. And I said, I'll give you 2 weeks. Dug deeper, started researching, because at the time I was working as a licensed clinical social worker in a hospital, and I love the research. I love, why behind a lot of things. And within those 2 weeks, I finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel. My pain lifted, my fatigue lifted. I mean, I was sleeping probably 15 hours a day in my 20s at this point. And it quite literally saved my life. And I dug in, learned a whole bunch, and went back to school. And at that point, I became a mom as I'm going back through school. And then I kept hearing this narrative from moms that you're gonna be exhausted for the rest of your life. Oh, you think pregnancy is exhausting, just you wait. Wait till you have a toddler. And I thought, this is awful.
Mm.
This is what we're telling our moms. I was so excited. I was looking forward to being a mom. And I was just so turned off by that narrative. So as I started to get into my nutrition career, I found that there was this whole community of women who have just accepted that this is what life is as a parent. This is how we live our life as we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s. And I didn't really want to live like that. And I had lived like that. I was there in my teens and 20s, just drained. And so I felt very deeply called to support women in this stage of life. And I still do clinical therapy on the side. And, that's my bread and butter for my therapy side too, is just these burnt out moms who don't know what to do. And they've been told this for years until it's not working and they're breaking. So I see it on both sides, the therapeutic side and the nutrition side.
So, Colleen, can you break down for us what actual functional nutrition is and how it works? Because I don't know about you, Brit, but I've actually never heard of functional nutrition before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I love that. Yeah. So, I didn't know what it was before I did this.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But it really is root cause nutrition, essentially. So we're not looking at symptoms and saying, okay, here's a supplement for this and a supplement for this and a supplement for this. We're digging deep and asking why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the dysfunction there? Why are the hormone cramps there? Why are we getting headaches every single day? Why is the fatigue there? Why, right? And it looks at the full picture. So that was one of the things that I really struggled with in my journey, was being sent to the cardiologist and to the neurologist and all of these different people. But in functional nutrition, we look at everything, the gut, hormones, nervous system, what's your mindset, because that plays into it, your stress, your environment. And in my practice, I use functional lab testing, which is a bit different. So the ranges for conventional labs, at least here in the States, and I don't know outside of the States, I would assume it would be the same, is when you go to get your labs drawn, each lab is going to give you a different range based on the population that it's testing. So if you have a really sick population, those lab ranges of what's normal is going to be different. And so in functional lab testing, we're looking at a very specific, narrow range of thyroid hormone or liver markers or, iron, things like that. And it doesn't change. It's that range across the board. And pairing that with what's going on in your life, what's your sleep like, what's your diet like, what's your movement like, we can really hone in on what each person needs. And it's different for everyone, but it's really about supporting the body's systems and them as a whole so that they can heal and not just suppressing the symptoms or putting a Band-Aid over it, which is life-changing.
So is it, pardon the ignorance, Colleen, but is it similar to a naturopath?
Mm-hmm.
In a way, we had a naturopath on, and I remember Mia saying, quite similar things in regards to really looking at the root cause. So am I correct in saying that, Colleen, that it's kind of quite similar to obviously what a naturopath would assist you in doing?
Yeah, it's really similar. With functional nutrition, we're focusing a lot of that diet aspect.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But having the clinical therapy training and being a clinical therapist, I bring so much of that in to look at behavior change. We want to get to the gym, we want to change our diet, but then we don't know how, or we get stuck in a loop of yo-yo dieting and different things like that. So I bring a lot of that in as well into my practice and my work with clients.
How many different variants do you have? So as soon as you get a test back, or results back, do you be okay, now I've got to figure out how I'm going to help this person nutritionally? You know what I mean? How does that how does that work? Do you have a little ticking box to say this is what they're shouldn't be having, or this is what they should be having to get the most out of their energy, etc.
It is really unique to each person, so not every client has the same labs run. It really depends on what their needs are. But, when we look at things, there's definitely this is normal and this is completely outside of what should be normal range. Or this is where we're really seeing a lot of inflammation or dysfunction in this area. But then, pairing the information and what we see with tests, looking at symptoms, but not chasing them, and then bringing all of those other things. My intake process is like 90 minutes long because we cover a lot of information. And getting a feel for where does this person need to start at? Because I can say, okay, here's how you completely overhaul your life. And if somebody's not even capable of making breakfast, then we need to start there with what that person needs. And sometimes it's not adding more to them, it's taking things away. Very often, and particularly with hormonal dysfunction, I'll see people really pushing super, super heavy in the gym, but then under eating. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to start there, right? And so the labs can give us some guidance, the symptoms can give us guidance, but then when we sit down and have that conversation, that's usually where I say, this is what I see in your labs, this is what I see in your symptoms, this is where your systems are struggling and your inflammation is and all of that. How do we make you go from where you're at now to reaching your goals? And a lot of that comes from that intake conversation where we say, what do you even have the capacity to do right now? And then just layer it in one step at a time.
So once people start your program, is that what you call it, a program that you put into place? What are the most common shifts they notice? Is it energy, mood, sleeping? What's the common thing that people notice that changes for them?
Often the first thing that I hear is, oh, I didn't realize I was so bloated and I'm not bloated anymore. That's usually the first. My stomach doesn't hurt anymore. And then from there, I usually hear, I woke up this morning and I didn't feel so sluggish, or my body doesn't hurt as much. I'm sleeping through the night. So it sort of layers in for people. Mood is a big thing that I work on right off the bat because we want people feeling good. We want them looking forward to doing this work and feeling a little bit more clear. So I bridge some of those therapy behavioral things in there. But usually it's pain, digestion, and energy, sleep kind of tied, I would say, is what people see right away. But, within 2 to 4 weeks, we usually see improvement. And then by 6 to 8 weeks, people kind of forget where they started. And I'll do a reevaluation with people around that time and say, let's look back. And when we compare where they started and where they're at now, they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's where I was, and this is where I'm at now, just in 6 to 8 weeks. It's mind blowing to some people because we forget. Oh, right, I was waking up 3 times at night. I completely forgot, and now I'm only waking up 1, or I'm sleeping through the night. And oh, right, I was getting breakouts, and I forgot that I'm not getting that anymore. Or my anxiety is shifting. So it's really fun to see in those first 2 months how people are feeling.
It's like you said, people just get used to it. They just kind of just accept it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You talked about, Colleen, obviously, how, I guess, the impact of mood is one big shift. So how does kind of food impact anxiety, people's mood, and the fatigue part of it as well?
Yeah, I love this question. This is what I love to talk about right here. So the gut, a big piece that we forget is that our gut is our second brain. It controls so much of how our body functions, and our gut and our brain are constantly communicating. So gut health has a really huge impact on mental health and energy. 90% of our serotonin, which is one of our neurotransmitters that stabilizes our mood, it's made in the gut. And when the gut is off, our mood is going to start to drop. It's going to start to suffer. And so when we have things like poor digestion, inflammation, blood sugar crashes, these are stress signals that our body receives, and the brain gets that. It tells us we're in this crisis mode, and we start to sit or stay in that fight or flight, which is when we start to see things like anxiety. But it's also really draining, and so we're going to see energy shifts. One of the clinical criteria for anxiety is exhaustion or feeling tired or brain fog, and it's because your body is just processing so many different things. So the foods that we eat is one piece. These can either calm the nervous system if we're giving our body really nourishing foods that it needs to function, or it can agitate it. And so things that come into play there too are blood sugar regulation. If we're eating a lot of sugary foods, really refined carbohydrates, we're going to get massive blood sugar spikes and massive blood sugar drops. And we're going to get hangry, cranky, shaky, headaches, different things like that. The other side is, can our body even digest the food that we're eating? So when we're in a chronic stress state, our digestion actually shuts off. So then we have food that's just sort of sitting there trying to do something, and it's just rotting, essentially. And so we start to have bloating, indigestion, burping, gas, different things like that, and all leads to inflammation. Energy drops, anxiety increases, different things like that. But when we support those systems and how the gut functions so that we can actually absorb our nutrients, make neurotransmitters, and nourish the body, everything starts to come back online.
So interesting.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that serotonin, 90% of serotonin is created, I didn't know, in the gut.
And I love that comment you said, like, our gut is our second brain. Like, it's like, if we think about that, then we'd be more aware of, like, or conscious of what we're putting into our body. Like, if we're just automatically wired like that, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, when you said that, it really stood out.
Yeah, it's wild, and we don't connect it. We don't connect that this thing that I'm eating that brings me this temporary dopamine rush, this donut, this whatever it is, we get a temporary rush, but we also get a massive blood sugar spike, and then we crash and we're drained and we're crabby. And when that happens, that cycle happens repeatedly, our body stays in that exhaustion, it stays in that anxiety, it stays in that depression, because it doesn't even have the building blocks to create energy and a stable mood.
We've talked about, obviously you focus on mums, but like, what if people are going through, like, let's say the likes of IVF, or they're pregnant? Would you suggest something like this as well to assist them, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I work with mostly women, but I've seen women at all stages of life, not just 30s and 40s. So I have, I've worked with clients who are in that preconception phase, and I've worked with women in that IVF cycle. It is incredibly important to support your body. And I even tell, often I'll see women come and say, okay, I want to get pregnant in the next month. And your body needs, and it's not something that I wanted to hear when I was in that phase of life of wanting to be a mom, but we really need to have nourished our body for 6 months to a year preconception, especially if we're struggling. And it's one of the hardest things to step back and say, I need to focus on this when your desire is to be a mom and hold that baby. But on the other side of that, I've unfortunately seen that cycle where we're not stepping back. We're just pushing harder and pushing our bodies to go through the treatments and do all the things. And we become very depleted. So it is important, that 6 months of stepping away and focusing on how can I nourish can save you years of going through, very challenging treatments.
Howdy, it's us again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Don't forget to download the awareness kit and subscribe to the podcast. Have a fabulous day.